All right, let's jump right in. You know those big, famous stories from the Hebrew Bible, right? Jacob and Esau, King David, Samson, we all know them. But what if I told you there's a kind of hidden code, a literary pattern of justice, woven right into these stories? And once you see it, well, you'll never read them the same way again.
I mean, think about it for a second. We're often taught that these are simple moral lessons. But what if the deepest truths aren't just spelled out for us, like at the end of a fable? What if the authors actually expected us, the readers, to do the detective work and connect the dots ourselves?
And that's exactly what scholars like Gary Rendsburg argue. He says, hey, we need to treat these texts like the brilliant pieces of literature they are. These weren't just campfire stories. They were crafted by incredibly talented writers for an audience that could really appreciate deep, subtle storytelling.
And this clever writing isn't just to show off. Nope, it serves a much bigger purpose. All this literary depth is actually the vehicle for a really powerful and consistent ethical idea that runs like a golden thread through the whole thing.
That big idea is what we call measure for measure. It's this form of poetic, divine justice where the consequence for an action isn't just random. It's a direct and often super ironic mirror image of the original act. And this right here is the key that unlocks the entire code.
So how does this actually play out? Let's take one of the most famous examples there is, the story of Rebekah and the stolen blessing. It's a fantastic story of family drama, betrayal, but the real justice? Oh, that happens between the lines.
So Rebekah's plan is it's meticulous. First, she overhears her husband, Isaac, getting ready to bless their firstborn son, Esau. But she wants the blessing for her favorite, Jacob. So she cooks up a meal, she disguises Jacob's smooth arms with hairy goat skins, and sends him in to fool his old blind father. It's a totally calculated deception from start to finish.
And right here, this is the moment. Jacob gets nervous, he's worried he'll get cursed instead of blessed. And Rebekah says this, "May your curse be upon me." She literally knowingly takes the full weight of what could go wrong onto her own shoulders. It's a massive piece of foreshadowing.
So the plan works. Jacob gets the blessing. And on the surface, you'd think, great, victory for Rebekah. But the Bible is way more subtle than that. As the story keeps going, we see that the price she pays for this little trick is absolutely devastating.
And here it is, the measure for measure justice. To save Jacob from his angry brother Esau, Rebekah has to send him away. But he's gone for 20 years, and the text never ever shows them seeing each other again. The unstated tragedy is that by scheming to secure her son's future, she loses him forever. The curse she asked for, it came true.
But wait, it doesn't stop there. This pattern just keeps going. Jacob, the guy who deceived his own father, is about to find out exactly what it feels like to be on the other end of a very, very similar trick. And this is it's brilliant. Years later, Jacob gets tricked by his father-in-law, Laban. He thinks he's marrying the younger daughter, Rachel, who he loves, but he gets tricked into marrying the older one, Leah. And listen to Laban's excuse. It is not so done in our place to give the younger before the firstborn. It's the exact same crime, thrown right back in his face with the same logic. It's absolutely perfect. Ironic, measure for measure justice.
Okay, so this isn't just a one-off thing with Rebekah and Jacob. Once you know what you're looking for, you start to see this pattern everywhere. It is a deliberate theme woven into the very fabric of the Hebrew Bible.
I mean, just look at these examples. Samson used his eyes to chase women he shouldn't have. His punishment was having his eyes put out. Absalom used his gorgeous hair to charm the people and rebel against his father. That same hair is what gets caught in a tree and leads to his death. And King David, after setting up a murder, just casually says, "The sword eats this one and that one." Well, what happens? 3 of his own sons die by the sword. The pattern is it's undeniable.
And the level of detail can be just staggering. Later commentary points out that Absalom stole 3 hearts: his father's heart, the heart of the elders, and the heart of the common people. So what was his punishment? He was struck in the heart with 3 darts, 1 for each heart he stole. I mean, come on, that is incredibly specific. So, this number, 60. It might seem totally random, but believe it or not, it connects 2 incredibly famous biblical figures in a story of cosmic payback that literally spans a generation.
All right, so according to some ancient commentaries, Boaz, the same Boaz from the story of Ruth, had 60 children, 30 sons and 30 daughters, and he threw 60 wedding feasts for them, but he deliberately didn't invite one couple.
Samson's future parents, who were childless at the time. He thought he was sparing them some awkwardness. Well, the measure-for-measure punishment for this lack of kindness was unbelievably harsh. All 60 of his children died in his lifetime. The justice is severe, but it is perfectly, mathematically proportional.
Okay, so all of this, it gives us a brand new way to look at one of the most famous and maybe one of the most misunderstood phrases in the entire Bible. We've seen this measure-for-measure thing as a literary trick in the stories, but it's also the philosophical engine behind the famous law, an eye for an eye. The stories we've been looking at are basically the narrative version of this legal idea.
Now, most people hear an eye for an eye, and they think it's this brutal, barbaric call for revenge. But that's not how it was ever really interpreted by the sages. For them, it was a Hebrew idiom. It didn't mean you literally go out and poke out someone's eye. It meant that the value of the lost eye must be paid back. It's a call for equity, for fair financial compensation, not literal bloody revenge.
And this idea of proportional justice was so foundational, so important, that it echoes hundreds and hundreds of years later, right here in the New Testament. The exact same core principle is spelled out. Whatever standard you use to judge other people, well, that's the same standard that's going to be used on you.
So at the end of the day, why does any of this matter? Well, once you see this measure-for-measure code, it completely transforms these stories. They stop being just simple fables with an easy-to-spot moral. They become this incredibly sophisticated commentary on justice, on consequence, and on how the universe itself seems to be ordered.
And that kind of leaves us with one last big question to chew on. If the universe, at least as these texts describe it, runs on such a precise system of cause and effect, a system where consequences aren't random but are baked right into our choices, what does that really say about our own free will? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.